What if I told you that heaven is leaning in your direction right now? That while you've been worrying about your next move, God has already commanded an angel to release what's been held back from you. Sometimes it's not the enemy blocking the blessing, it's the waiting room of your own faith. I'm reminded of Daniel, who prayed for 21 days before the angel broke through the resistance to deliver his answer. You've been praying, sowing, believing, but nothing seems to shift. Yet I came to tell you, the delay was divine, not denial, because when heaven finally moves, it moves suddenly. Archangel Michael says, I am begging for your 10 minutes, and what I'm about to reveal about this could shift your perspective forever. But you must watch until the very end. Don't skip. When heaven calls for your attention, it is not noise, it is music waiting to be heard by a quiet heart. You see, most people think revelation comes through thunder and lightning, through angels breaking the sky or miracles bursting in brilliance, but often heaven whispers. It speaks in subtle rhythms, through intuition, through silence, through the unshakable feeling that something wants to reach you if only you would stop long enough to receive. The angels do not beg for your attention because they are desperate, they ask because your awareness is the door through which the divine enters this dimension. 10 minutes of attention is not about time, it is about when you tune your mind to the frequency of heaven, even a short moment can alter the rest of your life. Distraction has become the disease of our generation. Our minds flicker between thoughts like restless birds, unable to land. Yet all the while answers hover just above us waiting for stillness. Heaven does not shout over your noise, it waits for your surrender. When you silence the endless motion within you, the lists, the worries, the regrets, you start to hear something older, truer, eternal. The voice that says, be still and know that I am God is not commanding idleness. It is inviting intimacy. Because attention is love, and whatever you give attention to, you give life to. Think about the story of Moses. The burning bush had been burning long before Moses turned aside to see it. The miracle did not begin when the bush ignited, it began when he noticed. The Bible says, when the Lord saw that Moses turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush. That's when heaven spoke, when attention met revelation. The bush was always there, but the voice was silent until Moses shifted his focus. What if your miracle has been burning beside you this whole time, waiting for you to turn aside? What if Archangel Michael is not introducing something new but trying to draw your eyes toward what has been glowing unseen in your own life? We live in a world that prizes motion, but heaven honors awareness. The next level of your life will not come because you moved faster but because you saw clearer. To pay attention is to acknowledge the sacred in what seems ordinary. It is to realize that the divine is not absent from your chaos, it's hiding inside it, disguised as a delay, a disappointment, or even a silence. When you learn to pause, to listen, to be wholly present, you allow the invisible to shape the visible. So when Archangel Michael says, "Give me 10 minutes," he is not asking for ritual. He is asking for relationship. He is saying, step out of the noise of your routine and into the rhythm of the unseen. 10 minutes of holy focus can transform your perception. 10 minutes of surrender can reveal that heaven has been orchestrating answers in the background all along. This is not about money first, it is about alignment. Because once your spirit aligns, resources follow. You've probably noticed that life has a strange way of responding to your attention. The moment you begin to notice gratitude, you attract reasons to be grateful. The moment you focus on peace, chaos starts to lose its grip. Energy flows where attention goes, and spiritual energy is no different. When your gaze shifts from fear to faith, from scarcity to abundance, from anxiety to trust, the gates of heaven respond to the vibration of your consciousness. This is the mystery behind miracles. It isn't manipulation, it's resonance. So if heaven is whispering through Archangel Michael, "I am begging for your 10 minutes," maybe that's the divine saying, you've been moving too loud to hear me. Maybe it's not about earning $66 million, it's about learning to dwell in the consciousness that creates it. For true wealth begins in awareness. The moment you recognize that the entire universe is conspiring to express love through you, lack becomes an illusion. Everything you seek has been seeking you. Every door you've prayed for has been waiting for you to notice it exists. The key is not doing more, it's perceiving deeper. Attention is the bridge between heaven's intention and your manifestation. When you learn to be still, the noise of the world fades and what remains is the voice that has been guiding you all along. And so if you give heaven 10 minutes of undivided attention, the universe will give you back a lifetime of divine orchestration, because revelation never chases the distracted, it rests upon the aware. The moment you choose stillness, you are no longer waiting for heaven, heaven is waiting for you. You have been taught to work for everything, to grind, to strive, to push the mountain until it moves, but there are moments in life when the mountain does not move by effort, it moves by obedience. The kind of obedience that does not make logical sense, the kind that whispers, "Stop pushing, be still," because when heaven desires to release something into your life, it does not require your strength, it requires your surrender. We often mistake movement for progress, noise for purpose, and striving for faith, but obedience is quieter. When the divine speaks, it rarely asks for more effort, it asks for trust. Think of Noah building an ark under a blue sky. He had never seen rain, yet he obeyed. He didn't argue, didn't analyze, didn't delay. He followed a word that contradicted his experience. That's the nature of obedience. It rarely feels reasonable in the moment, but it always proves right in the end. So when Archangel Michael says, "I am begging for your 10 minutes, it isn't about time, it's about alignment. It's about a moment of listening that could change the structure of your destiny." 10 minutes of obedience carries more creative force than 10 years of wandering. The question is not whether heaven is speaking, the question is, are you listening? We often pray for miracles while resisting the instruction that brings them. We want the water to turn into wine, but we ignore the quiet command to fill the jars first. The miracle is never separate from the instruction, it is hidden within it. Your obedience opens the chamber where your blessing has been waiting. There is a subtle difference between working for something and working with something. When you work for something, you operate from separation, you and the thing you seek are apart. But when you work with the divine, you move as one. Your effort becomes effortless because it flows with the rhythm of the universe. You begin to realize that your job is not to force outcomes but to respond faithfully to divine timing. The moment you align with that rhythm, what once required strain begins to unfold with ease. Obedience is not submission to control, it is participation in harmony. It is not a loss of freedom, it is the discovery of freedom. Because true freedom is not doing whatever you want, it is wanting what aligns with your higher purpose. When you obey the divine whisper, you stop fighting life and start flowing with it. You become like a river guided by gravity, effortless yet unstoppable. This is why many are exhausted. They are trying to manufacture blessings that were meant to manifest. They are trying to open doors with keys they were never meant to carry. But when you are in alignment, doors swing open not because of your strength but because they recognize your vibration. The right opportunities find you because you've tuned your soul to the frequency of readiness. So when heaven says, a pause, it isn't punishment, it's preparation. When heaven says, wait, it isn't denial, it's choreography. The divine is arranging people, places, and provisions behind the curtain while you learn to listen in the silence. That's what obedience is, not the absence of action but the presence of trust. Do you remember the story of Peter and the fishermen? They had toiled all night, caught nothing, and were cleaning their nets when Jesus said, cast your nets on the other side. It sounded foolish. They were experts. They knew those waters. But Peter obeyed, and in that act of obedience, the nets broke with abundance. The sea didn't suddenly produce more fish. The obedience unlocked what was already there. The same principle applies to you. Your abundance is not missing, it's waiting on your response. The instruction that feels inconvenient may be the exact key that opens the vault of divine provision. Sometimes heaven tests your willingness to follow small directions before trusting you with large blessings. 10 minutes of obedience can unlock what 10 years of strategy could not achieve. You see obedience as the bridge between promise and possession. It takes faith out of the realm of imagination and brings it into manifestation. The moment you say yes fully, without hesitation, the universe rearranges itself to honor that yes. And in that moment, what was once delayed begins to move toward you with divine precision. So maybe the call for your attention today is not a demand, it's an invitation. Maybe Archangel Michael's voice represents the eternal truth that life itself is asking for your cooperation, not your control. Stop striving to force the blessing. Start listening for where it wants to flow. The wind doesn't fight to move the leaf. It simply blows and the leaf yields. The blessing doesn't struggle to reach you, it simply flows and obedience lets it land. Because in the still act of obedience, what you were chasing begins to chase you. The greatest battle you will ever fight will not be with the world around you, it will be with the world within you. The enemy that delays most blessings does not always wear horns or come from without. It hides quietly in the mind, whispering doubts, replaying old fears, feeding illusions of inadequacy. The battlefield of faith has never been the earth beneath your feet, it has always been the space between your thoughts. Before any blessing arrives in your hand, it must first win the war in your head. That is why Archangel Michael says, "Give me 10 minutes." Because 10 minutes of peace within your mind can silence 10 years of spiritual warfare. The angels do not need to fight what you continue to agree with. Every negative thought you believe becomes a weapon turned inward. You become your own opposition, not because you are weak, but because you have forgotten how powerful your awareness truly is. The mind can either be a sanctuary or a prison, depending on which voice you decide to believe. Think of Daniel, who prayed for 21 days while the angel carrying his answer was resisted in the heavens. The battle wasn't only cosmic, it was internal. Daniel had to keep believing, keep praying, keep still in faith while everything in the natural told him nothing was happening. That's the essence of spiritual warfare. Not wrestling with demons, but holding your peace when doubt demands your attention. Every time you choose faith over fear, trust over panic, silence over chaos, you are participating in that divine warfare. The enemy loses ground not when you shout louder, but when you become too anchored in peace to be moved. The mind is a magnificent servant but a terrible master. It loves to convince you that what you see is all there is. Yet faith whispers that what you see is only a shadow of what's unseen. When you give too much energy to anxiety, you empower illusion. You start to believe the noise of your own thoughts more than the quiet promise of heaven. And soon you begin to interpret divine delay as divine denial. You think God has forgotten you when in truth, heaven has simply been waiting for you to quiet the storm within. The angels cannot hand you what you refuse to hold with calm hand. The war in your mind is subtle, it does not always scream. Sometimes it comes as overthinking, sometimes as guilt, sometimes as the haunting belief that you are unworthy of the very thing you've prayed for. But the truth is this, your worthiness was never in question. The divine has already declared you chosen, already assigned you victory. The battle now is whether you will believe it. When your mind is in turmoil, even miracles can seem threatening. You can stand in the presence of abundance and still feel lack because your awareness hasn't caught up with your reality. That's why transformation doesn't begin when circumstances change. It begins when perception does. You must see differently before you can live differently. So when Archangel Michael asks for your focus, he's not asking you to fight harder. He's inviting you to release the fight altogether. To stop wrestling with shadows and start resting in truth, because once you master your inner world, the outer world bends to that mastery. You cannot attract peace from chaos, you must become it. You cannot invite clarity while clinging to confusion, you must release it. The most powerful act of warfare is not confrontation, it's surrender, not to fear but to stillness. When you stop resisting what is, the storm loses its wind. In that stillness, revelation arises. You begin to hear divine instruction that was always there but drowned beneath the noise of panic. That's when you realize that heaven has not been silent. You were just listening to the wrong frequency. You've been taught to fight for victory, but the truth is, victory has always been yours. You only had to remember. The mind that believes in separation creates struggle. The mind that remembers unity creates flow. Once you stop identifying with your fears, you begin to live as the awareness behind them. And from that place, nothing has power over you, not doubt, not delay, not even failure. So give heaven 10 minutes, not to pray harder, not to beg louder, but to quiet the battlefield. Because once your mind is still, you'll realize the war was never against you, it was for you. It was designed to show you that peace was never something to win, it was something to remember. And when the mind is finally silent, what remains is the voice that's been guiding you all along. The battle ends the moment you choose peace. Faith has always been heaven's currency. Not the paper we call money, not the gold that glitters in vaults, but the unseen trust that connects human hearts to divine order. Its value exists only because people agree it does. But faith is a deeper kind of currency. It does not rely on agreement, it shapes reality itself. And when the divine speaks of abundance, when Archangel Michael says, "We'll receive money, 66 million today," it's not about the notes or the numbers. It's about awakening to the truth that everything you desire already exists in potential, waiting for your faith to unlock it. Faith is the bridge between what is unseen and what becomes tangible. The moment you believe, you begin to form an invisible thread that draws what's meant for you out of the unseen into your experience. This is why Jesus spoke of faith the size of a mustard seed. Because even the smallest particle of it carries the vibration of creation. It does not need to be large, it only needs to be alive. We often think of faith as something to use when we are desperate, when life feels impossible. But faith is not a tool, it is a state of being. It's the awareness that you and the divine are not two separate entities trying to communicate across a distance. You are expressions of the same infinite intelligence, co-creating reality through thought, emotion, and trust. Fear interrupts that flow, faith restores it. Fear says, "I must control everything." Faith says, "Everything is already being arranged." When you truly believe, the need for force disappears. You stop chasing outcomes because you recognize that you are already in the current of what's coming. Money is not the goal, it is a mirror. It reflects your belief about your own worth, your openness to receive, your ability to see abundance rather than lack. And when you shift that inner posture, the external must follow. The universe has no choice but to mirror what you hold with. So when Archangel Michael speaks of great wealth, do not hear greed, hear growth. Understand that heaven speaks in symbols. 66 million is not simply a sum, it is the language of overflow. It means multiplication, expansion, generational impact. It represents the truth that divine supply is limitless. The number may change, but the message remains. Abundance is not coming to you, it is flowing through you. Many struggle not because they lack resources but because they cannot believe they deserve. They pray for increase while holding on to the vibration of unworthiness. They ask heaven for more while secretly expecting less. But you cannot attract what you doubt you're worthy to receive. Faith doesn't demand proof, it creates. It begins with a decision, to believe you are loved, supported and chosen even when nothing yet reflects it. The currency of heaven cannot be earned, it can only be trusted into existence. The moment you align your thoughts with divine abundance, the flow begins to organize around you. People show up, opportunities appear, paths that seemed closed open effortlessly. It isn't magic, it's alignment. The outer world rearranges itself to match the vibration of your inner conviction. There's a story of a widow in scripture who gave her last 2 coins while others gave out of their surplus. The difference wasn't in the amount, it was in the faith. Her giving was not about loss but participation. She wasn't giving to get. She was giving because she already trusted that what she had was enough and that what she needed would arrive in due time. That's how faith moves. It multiplies what it touches. If you can hold that kind of trust, you will begin to see miracles in the mundane. The right person calls, the right door opens, what you thought was coincidence reveals itself as orchestration. But it's not heaven changing its mind about you, it's you remembering your oneness with it. Faith is the invisible current that carries you when your logic fails. It's the surrender that allows the ocean to lift the boat instead of the oarsman exhausting himself against the tide. When you finally stop trying to make things happen, and instead believe that they already are, you start to live in harmony with the rhythm of abundance itself. So when you hear the promise of wealth, don't fixate on the amount. Ask yourself, do I have the faith to see beyond the symbol? Do I believe enough to let the flow move through me freely? Because when you do, you'll find that money is not the mirror. And in that awareness, you'll realize the real treasure was never the $66 million. It was the faith that made you rich before a single coin arrived. There are moments in life when you pray, when you wait, when you hope, and nothing seems to move. You wonder if heaven has gone silent, if your prayers have slipped between the cracks of eternity. But what if the silence isn't absence at all? What if delay is not denial but divine choreography? There are seasons when the universe appears still because angels are working beyond the reach of your sight. The movement is happening, but in a realm just above your understanding. Think of Daniel. The ancient story tells us that from the very first day he prayed, his words were heard. The answer was dispatched immediately, yet for 21 days it was delayed by resistance. The angel carrying the response fought to reach him. It wasn't that Daniel's prayer was weak, it was that the warfare was real. What felt like divine neglect was actually divine warfare on his behalf. Heaven was not ignoring him, it was intervening. That's the paradox of delay. When nothing appears to be happening, everything might be. You see, divine timing isn't measured by clocks, it's measured by alignment. Sometimes the space between the asking and the receiving is where heaven rearranges things so that when your blessing arrives, it fits perfectly into your life without tearing you apart. If the promise came too soon, it might crush you. If it came too late, you might lose. So heaven holds it until you are ready to carry it, not just crave it. We often rush what requires ripening. A fruit picked too early is bitter. A seed uncovered too soon dies in the light. The same principle applies to destiny. When your blessing feels delayed, it's usually being developed. The people you need to meet, the maturity you need to grow into, the strength you must cultivate, all of that is being prepared beneath the soil of waiting. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. And the angels, those unseen forces of divine intelligence, are often engaged in clearing the path before you even take the first step. There are conversations being orchestrated, hearts being softened, closed doors being repainted for your entry. That's why patience is not passivity, it's participation. When you wait with faith, you are saying to the universe, I trust your timing more than my timeline. But the human mind resists waiting because it believes progress only happens through act. We think stillness is stagnation, that silence is failure. Yet the greatest transformations often occur in invisible stillness. The caterpillar does not become a butterfly by struggle, it happens in surrender, sealed within darkness while everything inside reorganizes. In the same way, when your life feels quiet, when heaven seems distant, it may be that you are in the cocoon of divine timing. Something unseen is transforming you for flight. There are times when you'll pray for open doors and find every path blocked. You might interpret that as rejection, but what if those closed doors are protection? Sometimes the universe withholds what you want to give you what you need. A delay can be mercy disguised as inconvenience. A missed opportunity can be preservation dressed as disappointment. What is withheld today may be preparing you for something far greater tomorrow. If you could see what heaven is moving behind the scenes, you'd stop worrying about how long it's taking. The same divine intelligence that set galaxies spinning is orchestrating your story with the same precision. Nothing is wasted, not the pauses, not the pain, not the waiting. Everything contributes to the unfolding of what you prayed for. So when Archangel Michael says, hold on, it is not because heaven has forgotten you, it's because heaven is finishing what it started. The angelic realm does not operate on human impatience, it operates on divine order. Your answer is not lost in transit, it's being refined in timing. Every delay carries information, every silence holds Instead of asking, why hasn't it happened yet? Begin asking, what is this delay trying to teach me? Because sometimes, the lesson itself is the key that unlocks the next phase. The waiting teaches trust, the silence deepens awareness, the pause reveals the patterns that once blinded you. When you see that, you realize that divine delay is not resistance, it's rhythm. There is music in the stillness, there is choreography in what feels like chaos. And when everything finally aligns, it will seem sudden, though it was centuries in the making. For heaven never forgets what it promised, it simply delivers it when the world around you and the world within you are both ready to receive. So if you feel delayed, don't despair. You're not stuck, you're being synchronized. The delay is proof that something divine is still moving. And when the moment arrives, you'll understand. What you called waiting was actually preparation for the weight of the blessing that was always meant to be yours. There is a subtle power in stillness that most of us overlook. We are taught to act, to push, to hustle, to struggle. We believe that movement is the only proof of life, that progress can only be measured in what we see happening. But in the unseen, in the quiet, in the pause, is where the true work of the universe occurs. Heaven does not always need our strength, it needs our surrender. It is in the moments we let go, when we stop striving and start listening, that angels find the space to operate. You've been trying to lift burdens that were never yours to carry. You've been forcing doors open that were designed to swing naturally. And yet even in your effort the divine is at work, moving unseen pieces into place. It is as if the cosmos says, stop pushing and watch how things unfold when you align instead of wrestle. There is a rhythm to life, a subtle pulse of timing and order. The universe works like a river, and you are not meant to swim upstream. You are meant to flow with the current that has been prepared for you, trusting that it will carry you to where you need to be. Think of Elijah on Mount Horeb. He had just witnessed miracles, the fire from heaven, the victory over the prophets, but then he fled into the wilderness, weary, broken, and believing that nothing could save him. And in that solitude, in the silence, he did not find chaos, he found God. Not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in the gentle whisper. The lesson is clear. The divine does not always show up in dramatic display. Sometimes the greatest interventions occur in quiet alignment where nothing is forced, nothing is labored over, and everything falls naturally into place. Stillness is not passivity, it is an act of faith. When you stop struggling, when you stop forcing outcomes, you create a sacred space where divine intelligence can move. This is why Archangel Michael asks for 10 minutes of your attention. He doesn't need your energy. He needs your presence. He doesn't require your understanding. He requires your willingness to let go of control, to trust that what is meant for you is moving, even if you cannot see it yet. 10 minutes of surrendered attention can accomplish more than 10 years of anxious strife. Our modern world confuses activity with progress, noise with purpose. We equate busyness with productivity and we measure worth by visible output. But the divine operates differently. The unseen is always ahead of the seen. Angels move in spaces where humans cannot. Blessings are arranged before they are revealed. Doors are opened before they are walked through. And often the delay we perceive is not inaction. It is preparation, alignment, orchestration. When you learn to rest, to breathe, to stop trying to control every outcome, you enter a rhythm that is both natural and divine. You begin to notice synchronicities, the people who appear at just the right moment, the words that arrive to guide you, the opportunities that seem perfectly timed. This is not coincidence. This is the universe responding to a spirit that has learned to stop wrestling with life and start flowing with it. There is a lesson here about the difference between effort and alignment. Effort without alignment is wasted energy, like pushing a boulder uphill only to have it roll back. Alignment, on the other hand, requires patience, attention, and a willingness to be still. It is the moment when your heart, mind, and spirit all agree to yield to a higher intelligence. And in that yielding, the impossible becomes inevitable. Consider the ocean. Waves crash and churn endlessly, yet beneath the surface, there is a calm, powerful current that shapes the entire flow of the tides. That current is unseen but unstoppable. So it is with divine intervention. Your struggle on the surface may feel all-consuming, but underneath, in the quiet space of stillness, the current of heaven is already moving, arranging and guiding every detail toward fulfillment. If you can let go of the need to force, to control, to solve everything with human strength, you create the exact conditions for the divine to act. You become like a still pond, reflecting the light of the sun with clarity and grace. In that reflection, miracles become visible, and what once seemed impossible begins to unfold naturally. So when the call comes to pause, to stop striving, to simply be present, hear it not as a demand but as an invitation. 10 minutes of stillness can open a doorway that years of frantic labor never could. The work is already being done. Your task is only to step aside and allow it to flow through you. Because in surrender you discover that true power is not in your effort but in your willingness to be still. And in that stillness what you have been chasing begins to chase you. We often think of blessings, wealth, or abundance as possessions, things we hold, things we collect, things we claim as our own. And yet the deeper truth is that divine provision is never meant to be a matter of ownership. It is meant to be a matter of purpose. The blessings you receive are not just for you, they are for the world through you. That is why Archangel Michael does not simply speak of money. He speaks of a calling, a responsibility, a channel through which divine abundance can flow. True wealth is not measured by what you accumulate, it is measured by what flows through you to bless others. Consider the story of Joseph in the land of Egypt. He rose to a position of immense wealth and authority, yet the richness he received was never simply for his comfort. It was for the preservation of nations, for the survival of people who had no idea he existed. His abundance was a river and he was its channel. He did not cling selfishly to the storehouses, he distributed what was needed, at the time it was needed, according to the wisdom of divine timing. That is the nature of prophetic wealth. It exists not to satisfy ego but to serve purpose. When people focus on wealth as possession, they often become trapped by it. Money, power, or opportunity can shift from being a blessing to becoming a burden if it is treated as an endpoint rather than a means. Purpose transforms abundance from a static thing into a living current. It turns the dollars, the opportunities, the gifts into instruments that can shape lives, communities, and even generations. When you understand that the blessing is meant to move through you, your perspective changes. Scarcity disappears because the measure of success is no longer in what you hoard, but in how effectively you channel what has been entrusted to you. The challenge is that we are often taught the opposite. We are taught to compete, to accumulate, to protect, to hold on tightly. Yet the divine principle is always movement, always circulation. The universe responds to flow, not stagnation. When you clutch tightly, the blessing becomes trapped. When you allow it to move through you, it multiplies and returns, often in ways that exceed what you could have imagined. This is why the instruction to align with purpose is not optional. Without it, the abundance may arrive, but it may not fulfill the reason it was sent. Think about the widow who gave her last 2 coins. She had nothing in her own eyes, yet she trusted that her small act would be enough. What she gave was not an amount but an alignment, a faith that allowed divine provision to move through her life. Her purpose was clear. She gave in a way that allowed blessing to flow into the lives of others. That's the principle we must grasp. Money, opportunity, or success is never an end. It is a conduit. Its value is in its circulation, not its possession. Purpose is the lens through which we can interpret our blessings. Without it, money can bring anxiety. Without it, opportunity can bring emptiness. Without it, success can breed isolation. But when your focus shifts from accumulation to contribution, from ownership to service, the very nature of what you receive transforms. It becomes alive, generative, and catalytic. You begin to realize that abundance is not something you contain, it is something you express. This understanding is liberating because it removes the fear that we will ever lack. When the blessing is not a thing to hold but a river to channel, the flow never truly ends. Even when resources leave your hands, they are never truly gone. They are merely traveling through the universe in accordance with a greater design. The divine economy is infinite because it is not bound by scarcity. It is bound by alignment, attention, and purpose. So when Archangel Michael speaks of wealth, he is not asking you to covet or cling. He is calling you to awaken to responsibility. He is reminding you that you are a channel, a vessel, a conduit through which divine abundance can touch lives. The power of your blessing is not in what you keep but in how you distribute it in harmony with purpose. When you understand this, every coin, every opportunity, every resource becomes sacred, because it carries the potential to change more than just your own circumstances. The world will test your ability to treat wealth with purpose. It will tempt you to hoard, to prioritize comfort, to isolate, but the divine principle will always reward flow, generosity, and service. When you align yourself with this truth, the abundance you receive is amplified, enriched, and sanctified, not because the universe owes you, but because you have learned to be a faithful steward of what is passing through. The moment you grasp this, you will see that real wealth is not in possession. Real wealth is in movement, in service, in purpose. And when you let your blessings move through you, you do not just live, you resonate. You become part of the river of life itself, carrying light, sustenance, and transformation to a world that needs it most. The treasure is not in the vault, the treasure is in the vessel, and you were made to be that vessel. There is a subtle but powerful truth that many people overlook. The flow of abundance, the arrival of blessings, is directly connected to the capacity of your mind to receive them. The spiritual realm does not deliver gifts into closed hearts or constrained imaginations. It moves to the frequency of belief. If you believe small, you receive small. If you believe in limitation, you encounter limitation. The moment you expand your sense of possibility, you invite the universe to match it. Your mind is the doorway through which divine blessings enter. And if that doorway is too narrow, even the greatest miracles will remain unseen. Consider the story of the Israelites wandering in the wilderness. They had witnessed miracles beyond comprehension, the parting of seas, manna falling from heaven, water from rock. Yet many still doubted, many still grumbled, many still limited their expectations because their minds were trapped in the logic of scarcity. The same principle applies today. The blessing exists, but if your mind is unwilling or unable to conceive of it, you will never recognize it when it arrives. Faith is the lens through which the invisible becomes visible. Belief enlarges capacity, and capacity determines what you can receive. When Archangel Michael says, "I am begging for your 10 minutes, it is not simply a request for attention, it is an invitation to expand your consciousness. 10 minutes focused, 10 minutes free of doubt, 10 minutes of willingness to imagine your life differently, can stretch your mind just enough to align with what heaven is preparing for you. The angels move where minds are open. Closed minds may resist, may filter, may even block what is already on its way. The unseen obeys the imagination of the willing, the expectancy of the prepared, the belief of those who have already accepted their portion. Too often we are limited by our own self-perception. We look at what we have, compare it to what we think is possible, and declare boundaries on the universe itself. We say, "This is too much. This is impossible. I could never handle such abundance." And in those moments the divine responds not with force but with respect for our freedom. It waits. The blessing is patient. It will not violate the mind's consent. Your expansion must come first. Your belief must grow to receive what is already on the way. Faith is not passive, it is creative. To believe is to participate in the construction of reality. The inner landscape of your mind shapes the outer landscape of your life. The size of your blessing is proportional to the size of your belief, the clarity of your vision, the courage of your imagination. Those who shrink their expectations shrink their experience. Those who expand their consciousness expand their destiny. The universe does not judge your worthiness by struggle or merit, it responds to readiness. The question is, are you ready to see what has already been prepared for you? He was promised descendants as numerous as the stars, yet he had no child for decades. The promise required not only patience but a mind willing to see the impossible as inevitable. When his mind finally aligned with divine possibility, when he trusted in the unseen, the promise manifested. The same principle operates today. Your ability to receive your blessings is determined less by external conditions than by your inner acceptance. Your mind must be willing to conceive, your heart must be willing to embrace, and your spirit must be willing to carry what you cannot yet see. This is why so many struggle to recognize abundance when it appears. They are given glimpses, opportunities, even sudden breakthroughs, but the mind cannot grasp the size of the gift. They see it, and yet they shrink from it, doubt it, or dismiss it. Blessings require courage of perception. They require belief beyond evidence, trust beyond reason, and imagination beyond circumstance. If you can see it in your mind before you touch it in your hands, you have already invited it into existence. Expanding your mind is not just about dreaming bigger. It is about realizing that limitation was never the truth. The universe is infinite, your life is not confined to the small, and your destiny is far larger than your current thinking. Each thought, each belief, each act of conscious openness is a ripple that prepares the ground for what heaven is delivering. The angels move to the receptive. They respond to the mind that dares to imagine, the heart that dares to believe, and the spirit that dares to expect. So if you want to receive the full measure of your blessing, start by expanding the capacity of your own mind. Release the limitations, release the doubt, release the disbelief that keeps the promise at a distance. Your imagination is the key, your belief is the portal, and your readiness is the signal. The moment your mind stretches to encompass the impossible becomes inevitable. And in that expansion you will see that what you once thought beyond your reach was never really out of reach. It was waiting for you to grow into it. There are moments in life when you feel that everything is coincidence, that opportunities appear randomly, and that blessings arrive only by chance. Yet the spiritual realm never works by accident. Every detail, every encounter, every whisper of inspiration is part of a precise divine orchestration. Archangel Michael's words, "I am begging for your 10 minutes," are not casual. They are an invitation to step into a divine appointment. You were not stumbled upon, you were summoned. There are forces moving in alignment with your life, waiting for your recognition, your attention, and your participation. The universe has a rhythm, a pulse, a timing that operates independently of human perception. From our perspective, it can feel as if we are drifting, reacting, hoping, but the unseen operates like a symphony, where each note, each instrument, each pause contributes to the whole. What may appear as delay or randomness is actually preparation, positioning, and alignment. The blessings you long for, the resources you need, the guidance you seek, they are all moving toward you in ways that are precise, purposeful, and often invisible. Consider the story of Joseph in Egypt. He was sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused, imprisoned, and forgotten by the world around him. And yet every step of that journey, the betrayals, the confinement, the hardships, was carefully orchestrated to prepare him for a moment of immense influence and provision. When the time came, he was not just ready, he was positioned perfectly to save nations. The divine timing had been at work all along, unseen but unstoppable. Your life is no different. This is why it is so critical to recognize divine appointments. So often we pass by opportunities because they do not appear the way we imagined, because they are not wrapped in labels we understand. Heaven does not always present itself in dramatic display. Sometimes it whispers through a conversation, a phone call, a sudden insight, or even a moment of stillness. That's why Archangel Michael asks for your attention, because the spiritual realm cannot act without your acknowledgement. The angelic realm moves toward those who are awake, those who are alert, those who can respond. 10 minutes of awareness can make all the difference. Too many of us live as if life is a series of random events, as if blessings arrive by luck. But the truth is that life is intelligent, purposeful, and deliberate. What you have been waiting for has already been dispatched. It is simply waiting for your readiness, your focus, and your faith. The call to pause, to listen, to align is not a delay. It is an invitation to recognize the architecture of destiny that has been unfolding all along. When you respond, when you give your attention, you step into the flow and allow the invisible forces to carry you forward. Faith is what bridges the seen and the unseen. Without it, divine appointments pass unnoticed. Without it, blessings arrive and we mistake them for coincidence. But when you cultivate awareness and trust, you begin to notice patterns, connections, and timing that were previously invisible. You realize that nothing in your life is truly random. Every encounter, every opportunity, every piece of provision is part of a tapestry being woven for your ultimate good. The angels are not only moving in your favor, they are waiting for you to recognize them. You have been prepared for this moment, even if you do not yet understand how. The setbacks, the delays, the obstacles, all of them were not mistakes or punishments. They were the scaffolding of your elevation. The divine realm does not operate hastily. It does not rush. It moves with precision. The 10 minutes that Archangel Michael requests are not simply time. They are a portal, a doorway through which you can step into the exact alignment of your life's purpose. When you finally recognize these moments, when you finally give your attention to what is unfolding, you will see the invisible threads that connect every detail.
You will understand that what appeared as chance was actually a coordinated pattern, a divine choreography designed specifically for you.
The blessings you thought were delayed are not late, they were arriving according to perfect timing. The opportunities you thought you missed were waiting for your readiness, so when you feel the nudge, the whisper, the gentle insistence to pause and focus, do not ignore it. This is not mere suggestion, it is summoning. The unseen forces are ready to work, but they require your presence. The angels cannot act where there is distraction, doubt, or disbelief. They move where there is awareness, where there is alignment, where there is faith. 10 minutes of focus can unlock a lifetime of provision, and in that recognition you will understand the truth. You were never stumbled upon, never forgotten, never overlooked. Everything in your life has been moving toward this moment. You were called, you were positioned, and now the only thing left is to respond. Because divine appointments do not wait forever, but your readiness opens the door to everything that has been prepared for you.